5 years ago today, my former boss, President Donald Trump, announced he was moving the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, recognizing it as the true capital of Israel. So joining us now to talk about that and many other things, we welcome Israeli Prime Minister-elect, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. He is the author of a terrific new book. It's called Bibi, My Story. Prime Minister, welcome. You were great on the radio. We won't have quite as long on TV, but we appreciate it, sir, very, very much.
Good to be with you, Larry.
So, Prime Minister, let me start with this 5-year anniversary. How important was it? Many presidents in the U.S. said they would, but only Trump followed through. We moved it. It's still in Jerusalem. How important was that, sir?
I think it was actually very crucial because it recognized a 3,000-year-old truth. 3,000 years ago, King David, that you remember from the Bible, King David proclaimed Jerusalem as our capital. And it took 3,000 years for the United States, in its 200 and some year history, to recognize that simple fact. And I have to say that it was the beginning of a general recalibration of the attitude of many in the world towards Israel, because you can't build the truth, you can't build peace on falsehoods. Sooner or later, they crash on the realities of the Middle East. And here, President Trump recognized the basic truth. Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel, of the Jewish state. And I think it opened up the path for many other things that happened, good things.
Well, in the book, you talk about another very important spot, I thought. You spoke to Congress, U.S. Congress. You were not happy with the Obama administration's approaches to Palestine or Iran, for that matter. When you spoke there, do you think that speech laid the groundwork, created some intellectual foundation that ultimately led to a Donald Trump moving the embassy to Jerusalem, to a Donald Trump withdrawing from the Iranian nuclear accords? How important was that congressional speech? And am I right in assuming that it had major consequences, positive consequences down the road?
Well, I think it was important, and I devote some time in my book for it, because it did two things. One, it raised the banner on a world scale, certainly in America and Congress, joint session of Congress, but for world public opinion about the dangers of Iran nuclear deal. Today, 5 years later, 7 years later, actually, people know what this regime is about. It has been unmasked in these this horrible oppression and subjugation of the brave Iranian men and women who are dying in the streets, fighting for their freedom. To have this country get a nuclear deal that would pave its way with gold, with billions, hundreds of billions of dollars that it could use to spawn terror and build a nuclear arsenal with minimal delay would be a mistake. I think that it launched this view. I think President Trump subscribed to it. So it gave, I would say, a backwind to this attitude that you have to withdraw from this dangerous deal, and you have to take active measures to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons, which would threaten not only Israel, but would threaten the United States. That's the first thing why it was important. The second thing was that while I was giving this speech in Congress, which was very difficult for me to decide to challenge a sitting American president whom I disagreed with, but I respected. It's not an easy thing for Israel to do that. I did it because my country's very existence, I thought, was endangered. But when I gave that speech, as I was giving it, we got phone calls from Gulf governments, Gulf state governments, who said, we can't believe what your prime minister is doing, challenging an American president. And that led to clandestine meetings in 2015 between me and certain Gulf leaders. And that laid the foundation for the Abraham Accords. I've always believed that the way we could expand peace was to go to the Arab world and not be stymied by the Palestinian straitjacket, because the Palestinians don't want peace with Israel. But the Arab states were open to that. And that speech opened the path to what later became the Abraham Accords, the historic, four historic peace agreements between Israel and the Arab states, which were also achieved with the help of President Trump and his staff.
And the Abraham Accords change the map in the Middle East, change the whole idea of getting peace in the Middle East, remove the centrality of Palestine in the Middle East. I mean, I can't think of anything more important than that. I'll come back to the Iranian issue in a minute, sir. But I think, you know, moving the embassy, the Abraham Accords, a lot of this stuff may have gone back to that original speech in Congress that you made, which was, if you'll pardon my French, quite a ballsy move.
Well, I'll receive compliments in any language, but I'll tell you that I will say this, Larry, that I had a vision for many years, which was basically contested by all the foreign policy elites, not only in the United States and in Europe, but also in Israel. For years, they said the only way you're going to break out to a broader peace between Israel and the Arab world, and there's over 20 Arab states, is you first have to solve the problem with the Palestinians. The problem with that is that the Palestinians don't want peace. They don't want a peace with Israel. They want a peace without Israel. So after the first two peace agreements that we had with Egypt and with Jordan, we waited for 25 years for the Palestinians to make peace with us, and they wouldn't make it because they want to see the disappearance of Israel. And therefore, we could wait another quarter of a century, another half century, and we still wouldn't get peace. I always believed that we should, you know, the Palestinians are welcome to come and negotiate a genuine peace anytime they want, but we shouldn't wait for them. We should go out to the Arab world. And I thought that the rise of Israeli power, especially the rise of Israeli technological, economic and defense power and cyber power, that made us very attractive to the Arab countries. And as the threat of Iran rose and the power of Israel rose, many Arab countries started seeing in Israel not as their enemy, but as their indispensable ally for two things. One, to create a barricade, if you will, against Iranian aggression, which threatens them as well, but also as a source of great innovation that could help the lives of their people in so many areas. Desalinization, energy, digital technology, medicine, you name it. So I believe that we should create this different kind of peace that got away from this Palestinian rabbit hole. And once we did, amazing things happened. I don't know if people know that, but hundreds of thousands of Israelis fly over the skies of Saudi Arabia to Dubai, to Abu Dhabi, to Bahrain, and they form joint ventures, billions and billions of dollars of joint ventures and economic trade. It's just amazing. Jews and Arabs dancing on the streets of Dubai. It is changing history. So real peace, peace from strength and peace from and for prosperity.
Well, I think, Jim, open trade, open investment, prosperity makes it a lot easier for peace. You and I have discussed about this. In fact, you yourself turned Israel's economy around. You are a free market capitalist. And when you were finance minister, let alone your times as prime minister, you made Israel an economic powerhouse. And I just want to add to that, you're sitting on a lot of natural gas reserves in the eastern part of the Mediterranean that'll make you an even greater powerhouse if you let the free market develop it.
Well, first of all, we were lucky we discovered the gas late in the game because we had to live by our wits. The only problem was we had a lot of wits, but we didn't have free markets. So I devote a good couple of chapters in my book to explain how I helped lead the free market revolution in Israel, turning it from a semi-socialist economy to one of the world's most robust free market economies. And, you know, we had technology because of the military, but technology and even education doesn't make you rich. It just doesn't. Look at the former Soviet Union. They had metallurgists, mathematicians, physicists, didn't help them a bit. In fact, they were dirt poor. So technology and education do not make you rich. Free markets do. But the combination of free markets and technology, which is what my vision for Israel was, makes you a juggernaut of economic success. And we've overtaken with the reforms that I describe in my book, which weren't easy to achieve, I can tell you. We turned Israel's GDP per capita with these reforms has surpassed that of Britain, France, Japan, and most recently, Germany. So we are well underway. And we can use that. I've always believed that we could use that to strengthen our military, which we did, to fund our military, which we couldn't with a semi-socialist economy over time. And the two of these powers, the military prowess funded by economic free market prowess has gave Israel diplomatic prowess with the Arab countries, and by the way, with many, many countries around the world. I had to fight to get as far as the gas is concerned. Well, we found the gas. You know when we found it? We had a government gas exploration company for 50 years. We found nothing. Okay, the minute we privatized it, we found gas deposits.
I love that.
Okay, but I couldn't get them out of the water. I described that too. I couldn't because the ultra progressive lobby said keep it in the ocean. This is going to hurt our environment. Hurt our environment. We're burning coal. Now we have gas, natural gas. What could be better? Anyway, I had to fight them and got it out. And now Israel is energy independent in exporting gas, beginning to export gas to Europe. And boy, do they need it.
Well, there's a rumor. I mean, I don't know. People may not know you went to MIT and graduated with a degree there. But there's a rumor that when you were finance minister, you consulted in New York with people like Jack Kemp and even Larry Kudlow. I can't substantiate that rumor, but it's just a rumor.
Yeah, I heard that rumor, and I can substantiate it. And I remember meetings that I had with you and with Jack Kemp, the late Jack Kemp. And you know what Jack told me? He heard all my ideas. I had a lot of free market reforms, cut welfare, which was exceedingly hard, bring down government spending and so on. And Jack said, well, you have to do three things: cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes. So I did. I cut taxes, but Larry, here's the thing: I cut taxes, but I also cut government spending.
Yes.
It's easy to cut taxes.
Yes.
It's hard to cut government spending, but the combination of the two, along with the deregulation on a broad front, really made the Israeli economy surge forward. But it was tough. When I had to, when I took over the finance ministry. After I had lost my first stint as prime minister, I was out of a job. I was offered a job to come back after I had an enjoyable reprieve with my family. But I was offered the job of finance minister in the worst economic crisis in decades. And my staff told me, don't do it. Don't do it. You're coming into an economic crisis. You're going to have to make difficult budget cuts. You'll never get back to the prime minister's office. And I thought about it, and I said, well, why do I want to come back to the prime minister's office? One, to stop Iran, but second, to turn Israel into a free market juggernaut. So maybe I'll accomplish at least one of these things. It's worth a try. And when I came in, I found that the situation was horrible. So I had 3 weeks to tell the Israeli public what I was going to do, because I wanted to launch my recovery plan as fast as possible. And I thought, how am I going to explain to semi-socialist Israel what it is that we were going to do? And I thought about it. Well, the one common experience is not lemonade stands, competing lemonade stands, which are or used to be familiar in the United States, but the military. So I fell back on my first day in the military, in the paratroops, basic training. Commander puts us in a straight line, and he says, now we're going to take a special kind of race. And he points to me, you, Netanyahu. Look to the man on your right, put him on your shoulders. Okay, I did. Then he goes to the next one, you look to your right, put the man on the shoulders, and so on. And now he blows the whistle, and we start the race. I had a big guy on my shoulders, and I barely could take a few steps. The guy next to me was the smallest guy in the company, and he had the biggest guy on his shoulders. He collapsed. The third guy was a big guy and had a relatively small guy on his shoulders. He shot off like a rocket and took the race. And I said, all national economies are pairs of a public sector sitting on the shoulders of the private sector, who has to carry the load. And, in our case, the public sector got too fat, the fat man, they call it. And he's carried by the thin man. And what do you have to do? Put the fat man on a diet, and then give a lot of oxygen to the thin man, which means lower taxes, lower taxes, lower taxes. That's courtesy of Kudlow and Kemp. And start running. Okay, but when you run, you hit a ditch. And then you hit a wall, and then you hit a fence. That's called barriers to competition. So you got to remove those. And basically, we did these three things, about 80 reforms altogether, done in tandem. Because you know why in tandem? Because any one of them would get you a 3 months general strike, labor strike. So I figured I could maximize the number of reforms per labor strike. And that's what we did. And it just made a whole of a difference.
Well, I think it's a great story. And I think, you talk a lot about peace through strength. And I learned that from Reagan many, many years ago. I think the strong economy is the basis of peace through strength. And that throws off the resources that you need in your battles ahead. Anyway, Mr. Prime Minister, we appreciate it very, very much. Good luck in your next term. We're rooting for you, us free market capitalist types, and also people who believe in freedom and democracy and Israel. Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. By the way, folks, the name of the book is Bibi. We'll put it back on the screen. It's going to hit the bestseller list very soon. There it is. My story. Terrific stuff. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much.
You
Bye-bye.
bet.